Welcome to the Libra podcast, where education leaders explore the intersection of culture, strategy, and innovation in today's schools. I'm your host, Nate Lichte, and in each episode, we'll uncover the leadership habits, systems, and bold ideas that help districts thrive. Well, Celeste, thank you so much for sitting down and sharing some of your time with us today.
Thank you.
Maybe to start, would you mind kind of introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about what led you to the path of being a superintendent?
Wow, certainly. So thank you so much, Nate, for having me on today. Well, I'm Celeste Merriweather. I am originally from Camden, New Jersey, which is a small town right outside of Philadelphia. So I'm the South Jersey girls, not the North Jersey, not to be with the North Jersey girls. So I'm Eagles fan, go Birds. Um, had my whole life living in Camden, attended Morgan State University. Um, Through that, didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I had a lot of great friends that said, "We're gonna ready to become teachers." Never thought that I would be that, but I needed a job and actually fell in love with it. Started as a first grade teacher in Camden, New Jersey, then, started my graduate, school career at Penn State University and ended up with a doctorate degree, and then, didn't know what I wanted to do. Thankfully, Bridgeton had some positions open in Bridgeton, New Jersey. So, Bridgeton Public Schools is in Cumberland County, New Jersey, which is even further south. So, the only people who know about us are folks from Jersey, but it's a small town of great hard town. So, I came to Bridgeton in 2000 and started my career here as an early childhood supervisor. I then became principal of a K to 8 school. I then became the funded programs director, and then moved on to assistant superintendent, and in 2023 became her superintendent. So I've been in Bridgeton a little over 25 years. It'll be 26 years in April. Um, my trajectory has been interesting because again, my bachelor's degree is in business administration. So I really did not intend on education at all. None of my family are educators. But what I always knew is I wanted to give back in some way. I enjoyed being around people. I enjoyed children. Thought I was going to be one of those people that the teacher, that their babies are their kids. Um, but just really enjoyed it. And even when I started teaching, thinking, oh, this will just be for a little while, it really became something that I became good at, something that I became very passionate about. And then as I moved on into leadership, I also then said, how can I translate what I know that is best for kids and what our society and our communities need? How can
Mm.
I translate that to enact even bigger and better change? So that's how I became in instructional leadership. So that's a little bit about my story of how I came to Bridgeton. Bridgeton is an amazing place. Like I said, it's in Cumberland County, New Jersey. It is unfortunately on a couple of lists that we prefer not to be on. We are one of the lower economic districts in the state of New Jersey. Right now, Bridgeton heralds about maybe about 65%, a very, very diverse population with about 65% of our population being Latinos. So that's been a very interesting way that we have evolved as a district. I certainly see it as a positive. But when I first started in Bridgeton, we were mm, maybe about 10%. And just that quickly, we have just blossomed. We found out that in there's a town in I believe Mexico that actually had a sign that said, if you want to come to work, come to Bridgeton. We were like, Mama, we
Oh,
late. Because we in a very it's a lot of farming around. So
yeah.
a lot of our families are farmers. So in almost an agrarian society, but not as much, but a lot of farming. So we have a lot of those students that come to us, and it has been a wonderful journey trying to make sure that we are making sure that we are ensuring that we are educating those students, including their parents, who many of them are first generation. The students are first generation students or are coming to us from other countries. And of course, in this political climate that we're currently in, it's been another kind of tense time. But thankfully, our parents are still hanging right in there with us.
Mhm.
So Richmond is a very special place in the state of New Jersey, and one that I'm very proud to lead.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love to hear about communities, especially districts like yours that have these really diverse populations that are
Mhm.
supported by heavy agricultural roots. and that are in this sort of this flux of change that is occurring,
Yes.
right between the
Yes.
community, because that community piece, plays such a huge impact on the district. And I don't know
Mhm.
that think that we actually talk about that as much as maybe as we should. So I want to lean into kind of one of our first topic areas, which is, when you're in these communities and you've got this kind of influx of change because your student demographic body is changing, and being the head of the district and leading the district, a huge piece is cultivating belonging.
Yeah.
And how do you, really identify and protect, that diverse school community?
Mhm.
So talk to me a little bit about what are some of the things in the district that you're doing to really cultivate belonging amongst all of these diverse student populations and
So
communities.
one so we're doing a few things that first thing we're doing is getting to the heart of the matter, certainly with our educators and with our staff, is that everyone belongs here.
Mm,
And sometimes, some schools may say, oh, you belong here, but we really have to lean into no, no, we really mean it. Everyone who comes into the Bridgeton Public Schools belongs here. What does that look like? That's just not us just saying it, but it's
right.
also talking to how do we speak to students? Are we making sure that we're speaking in their language? And sometimes that's a little bit of the low hanging fruit, but we say if we can't even talk to our parents, if you don't even take the time to make sure that we're talking to our parents in a language in which they understand, that can then immediately become a disconnect. And we have a lot of districts, I'm sure, worldwide and certainly nationwide, but in our state, we have a lot of different languages. In Brixton Public Schools, it's mostly Spanish, but we also have a few pockets that have a dialect that come from different parts of Mexico and other countries. So we've been working with our director of bilingual education to make sure that we are reaching those parents as well. So we've been intentional in our focus in making sure our staff is equipped to understand that all of our learners may look different, but they have the same um, want to not only get the best education that they can, but for them to be great citizens as they move on from us. We're not going to dummy down our curriculum. We're not going to dummy down our expectations for our students just because where they may come from. Then we also have a very, very specific opportunity to honor our parents. Because again, sometimes you have some folks that, well, the parents don't look like us. They're too busy working. They this, they that. What we do also know is that they're bringing their students to our schools be cared for in the very best way. How are we going to honor that? So we make sure that we have a lot of parent events. We make sure we have events that they want to have, not just how can you read for your students, but how can you take advantage of resources? How can you take advantage of support? We've had a lot of how can you take advantage for and no immigration questions, because we're not going to act like what's happening isn't happening. Okay. But what exactly can we do? And there's some things we're very honest with them. There's some things as a school I can't do because what I don't want to do, I don't want to put a spotlight and hurt the very people that I'm trying to help. But we are duty bound to tell those parents, listen, we walk alongside you and we're going to do everything that we can. So we've been having different type of workshops. So we make sure our parental engagement, which is different from involvement, but that two-way street of engagement is occurring. What we're also doing, we have specific programming in schools. So our students that come straight to us, they're not just sitting in a class trying to figure it out. We have something special here called a port of entry program where we have our students who come directly to us from other countries who have no real knowledge of American education. They get to sit in a class that is really based on those needs, which are a little different from our students who may have students who are new to our country. Excuse me, parents that are new to our country, but they're really still indoctrinated in being in America, if you will. They're not just like we are not only new to this country, new to American education, new to the language, just a lot of different opportunities for them to try to figure out what exactly is happening here. So we have that port of entry program. Bridgeton has also been a model in bilingual education as far as trying to get different our certified staff. So we actually have a lot of certified staff. Well, don't I'm not gonna say a lot because anybody who's listening that needs a job, please come to Bridgeton. But we pride ourselves in getting bilingual staff that are also duly certified in special ed
Mm,
bilingual, which is huge. Anyone in education knows um, bilingual certified staff for high school because we have a lot of those students that come to the high school. Certainly, if you walk through any of our schools, you would see like this must be all bilingual school. But those are some of the things that we've been doing to try to honor what we're doing for our population, which is changing in demographic. But what we're also doing is making sure that we're honoring the rest of the population, because what can happen a lot of times is a community can start to feel like, oh, you're only working with those parents now. What about us? So we make sure that we're letting everyone know. Again, everyone is honored here in Bridgeton, and we just created our strategic plan. And our strategic plan is for 5 years, and we now have the new mantra, One Bridgeton,
Yeah.
because so many years we were in different schools and we had different mascots and everyone had their different logo, but we really saw that this is a great opportunity for us to become one. That
Mm.
everything that we're doing, everyone, you may have your own personality, your own flavor, but we know when you come into the Bridgeton Public Schools, you're going to get a certain experience. And that experience is going to be one of trust. It's going to be one of high academic rigor. It's going to be one that you feel good in, and one that you want to stay as far as being a staff member, and that you want to stay as far as being a parent. You don't want to move to another school. You want to stay with the Bridgeton Public Schools. So those are the things that we're really trying to do to get our students to feel like they belong here. We've been doing a very big push too in mental health services. Since COVID, we've seen a lot of our students really struggled. I think it didn't just happen, but it's shown it shined a light on, wow, a lot of folks are struggling. So we've been pushing a ton of resources into mental health, a lot with our counselors,
Mm.
behavior specialists. We have SEL specialists that have been we've actually been touted by the state of New Jersey as a model in that area, to really try to work with our kids as far as what they're feeling, bringing those feelings to school, sometimes not acting in the best way. But again, these are children. I always tell people, if they could do it, they would be home. We would only have to give them a subscription to Khan Academy and see them in 12 years. They need us. And
Yeah.
so what are we going to do in order for them to succeed and work through some of their feelings, work through some of the things that are happening to them, so that they can become their best selves as well?
Mhm. Gosh, that's so important. Like creating that culture of belonging. I feel like that's a huge phrase that's circulating right now, but
Mhm.
there's so many facets that come into play
Oh,
with it,
yeah.
right? Like, we know that to creating that culture of belonging, so much of that is about representation, right?
Mhm.
And not just in leadership roles, right? Like
Yes.
students seeing themselves in leadership roles is a huge piece of creating a
Yes.
culture of belonging, but it also extends heavily into curriculum,
Yes.
decision making, all of those daily school life things. When you think about that, and you've shared so many other things, but how are you as a leader kind of specifically intentionally doing that to kind of facilitate those conversations with all the other folks that are under your purview?
So when we think about really just making sure that the diverse population, if I'm answering you correctly, so let me know,
Yeah.
Nate, if I need to if I ever need to circle back. One of the things, again, talking about our staff, is we try to have a diverse staff as possible so that the students can see that representation. And it's interesting that you said that, because um being a Black woman leading now a majority Hispanic district has been interesting, because sometimes they're like, wow, you are a representative of the district. But in some ways, I'm not, because we are heavily Hispanic. So, what does that mean for our parents? Thankfully, our parents see as, wow, she's someone who looks out for other cultures. So, I've
Mhm.
been able to try to push that. We also have different cultures represented in our leadership. So I do have our bilingual educator, excuse me, our bilingual director is I think I'm not going to say it, because if it's wrong he's going to kill me, but certainly he is a Latino man who's came to us probably about 10 years ago. We have staff members that are both male and female. We have a Latina administrator at our high school. We have several different folks of people that students can look to for their representation. But what I always want to do, it's not almost only about what you look like, but it's also what you think, what
Mm.
you're teaching. So what we've also been doing is doing a lot of equity work as far as what are microaggressions, what is bias, how is that showing up in your classrooms, how does it show up in our curriculum, how does it show up in our policies. We've been very, very intentional about looking at that, because again, I can't say that although I'm going to be able to find this plethora of bilingual biology teachers or science teachers and be able to have a complete representation in our schools. But what I can do is offer the professional development for our staff to understand that it's going to look a little different here. That's how I intentionally lead in this,
Yeah.
to ensure that our staff is thinking a little bit differently as far as our students are concerned, and getting them to understand that just because you're thinking differently about our students doesn't mean that you're thinking different about education. I
Yeah.
also said that our North Star are our children, period. So if that is not where you are, that's where you either need to get to be, or I need you to think, make some other decisions as far as where your career is going to be. Because here in Bridgeton, that's going to be the mantra. My leadership style is to ensure that our staff are thinking about some of the things that our students may have to go through, which I won't say is a deficit, but it's certainly a challenge. Again, I came in from through Camden. Anyone who knows Camden, or if you Google Camden, it is a lower income district. A lot of my friends um, were able to definitely go on to some of the highest highs. I mean, I have judges, I have fellow superintendents in my class, people who became on to have prolific law careers, medical careers. But then we also have other people who, were not able to overcome some challenges, or some opportunities just did not come their way. That exists here in Bridgeton. But what I'm interested in as a leader, and trying to have our other leaders, our building leaders, and certainly our central office leaders, is how can we make that story, although that may be the story, what can we do to help our students overcome it, if you will?
Mm. Mhm.
In high school, we have right now our principal, and we've had some amazing leaders, but right now our principal is extremely intentional about the balance of freedom and accountability. So I love going into the high school because it's almost like a little college campus. They're all chit-chatting, but
Yeah.
they also know we have to get to class on time. They also know these are the expectations when they use the restrooms. They're not people. It's not like an overseeing culture, but it is an accountability culture. That's a leadership thing that I made sure, a tenet that I have made sure that I want to have, and what I'm asking in our middle schools is to allow students to have that freedom, because a lot of times what happens in black and brown communities is that we tend to over police our children. We don't allow them to have the freedom that you may see in some other schools. And that is an opportunity to show our kids that, hey, we believe that you know how to govern yourselves. We have to teach it to you, but then we're going to allow you to do some of that. And that's a different mind shift that you would see as a leader in our leadership, that what we believe our students to be, this in spite of what society may say they are. So those
Yeah.
are just a few things that comes to mind straight off when I'm thinking of um my leadership style, and how I get the rest of our district to come on board with the diversity of our students.
Gosh, that's so you said so many things that kept hitting on that just are huge things that I think are differentiators from what you're doing, not only the high school principal, but just even how you're leading. So you talked about self-governance,
Mhm.
right? Like and instilling that in your kids, but you
Mhm.
also talked about freedom through accountability,
Yes.
right? And giving, right? Which, when we think about preparing kids and students for future, especially our students from our marginalized communities,
Mhm.
that's a huge piece to kind of how they start to navigate systemic barriers and how
Yes.
we work as educators to advance some of these inequities and things that are occurring. Talk to me a little bit more about, so you're doing that in the high school and some of these other ways, but how else? What else is the district doing to help kind of navigate these systemic barriers?
So some of the things that we're doing with the to try to navigate some of the systemic barriers is being getting a lot of partners on
Mm,
board. So here in Bridgeton, we do have the complete care. We have a lot of health partners here. If I may also give myself a little glows and grows. One of the things we probably can grow on is working a little bit more with our local government,
mhm.
because again, for us, our city, we have so many things competing not I'm not saying, I want to say competing priorities, but competing opportunities right now. Again, because of who we are experiencing some challenges as far as some of the initiatives that are coming down from our federal government. So right now, our city is a bit taking the lead on that. But this is an opportunity for us to meld more into making sure that the city, our city government, our state government, and our school community is working a bit more in tandem. Um, as far as other opportunities that we're doing, I did mention already the social and emotional learning piece
Yeah.
is very big in our district because what we want to do when you talked about when I was talking about the self-governance and really getting our kids to be able to do some of that freedom through accountability, it's also about critical thinking. And now more than ever in our nation, and certainly where we are trying to teach children, is being more critical thinkers because I believe, just kind of getting on the Celeste soapbox for a little bit, is that critical thinking we haven't been able to hone that as much as we should. And
Right.
obviously, every teacher is going to say, "Sure, I teach critical thinking," but now none of us had to teach. At least I didn't have to teach critical thinking when it was social media. I,
Yeah.
I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to teach critical thinking when it was AI.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do that. So now, when you're thinking about that, what does that look like in the classroom? Because we were one of those districts too when it first came out. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
Get rid of AI. And then we were like, "Oh, it's not going anywhere." Okay, okay, never mind. Keep it. And now what are we going to do? Because we really acknowledge that this isn't going anywhere, and our students are a little bit more adept at this than we are.
Yeah.
So how are we going to teach them? Okay, this is a tool, and many of the kids, which I'm excited about, if you ask some of the kids, they're like, "No, no, no, you don't just tap it right in there, miss," because all the kids, "Hey, miss, you don't just tap it right in there because you don't know what that's saying." But you
Yep.
give them an idea, you to put it in there, and maybe they can help you with how you say it or give you some ideas, but you have to really think of it, make sure you're reading it through, and I'm like, the kids are gonna be all right because
Yeah.
they already have some of that, but those are some of the things that what we're trying to do. But we know that we need to do a little bit more partnerships as far as giving some of our students some opportunities outside of the district. But I would want to say, I want to tout that we've been doing some things with some of our local county. Our county organizations because we do have an opportunity for students to learn plumbing, electrical, and it was
Yeah.
electrical and HVAC, which was through a grant that we have. So we have a few students going to do that. Again, to tout the high school, we have a huge addition that's getting ready to be built onto our high school that is really going to be tackling a lot of the new engineering, a lot of the cyber security, a lot of those things, realizing that some of our students, is going to really be leaning into that. We're also
Hmm.
leaning into esports so
Yeah.
that a lot of the things that's where we're going. And what we're excited about is not wanting to cling so much to the past of, oh, that's what the way we've always done it, but really trying to be forecast as much as we can to what is it that was coming down the road, what are our students good at, what can we increase their acumen, and then how can we make sure that that's present in the Bridgeton Public Schools.
Yeah.
We had a conversation yesterday, our administrative meeting, and we're talking about what's probably every school, is how students, when they're taking their online assessments, oh, those little angels know how to get around some things.
Yes.
How are they doing this? And I said, we just need to be the Bridgeton Public Schools for coding because they're able to do it. But we laugh, and obviously we don't want them to do certain things. But I said, but you know what? If they're able to do that, it's pretty hard for me to then say they can almost figure out how to go around a system to get an answer. Oh, but they don't know anything about history. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that
So much.
that doesn't.
It's for future focused schools. I think what you're doing to kind of summarize is leaning into those areas of strength that your students are exhibiting and
Mhm.
finding ways to cultivate it, right? Like that's a
Exactly.
huge way that is such a pivotal moment of future focused schools.
You
Um,
have to do that. You have to do that because if so many of our students, because we have a lot of students that just enjoy, they enjoy technology. They're big
yeah.
into social media. I mean, this is a big, so I mean, this little town really rocks with social media.
Yeah.
So, okay, how can we lean into that? What can we do to ensure, like, what can we offer that allows them to experience that? So, excuse me, the word responsibly. Sorry, that
Yeah.
got a little,
Yeah.
little brain thing there. How we can help them do that responsibly. And so some students, interestingly, they lean right into that. Oh, this is what we can do. This is what it should say. You know what, miss, this happened. It wasn't right. We should. And then that's how we then do that freedom through accountability. You're free to say certain things, but you have to be accountable to it.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And
Yeah.
so going not only just at the high school, just moving that down as soon as students can really start to be able to, because we have some eighth graders that were online talking about, oh no, my mom said I can't have a TikTok account. Why do you have TikTok account? And you're listening like, what in the
Yeah.
world? How do you even have a device that supports TikTok? But then that's a judgment that I'm not going to make. I'm not going to do it. But I like hearing stuff like that, because if that's the case, then we need to start pushing what responsible internet looks like even further. Because that was an 8-year-old talking, not to
Mhm.
me, but to his friends, but
Wow.
within earshot, but not shying away from that, not saying, oh, we need to tell parents not they shouldn't have their phone. No, we need to let parents know, listen, if this is what's happening, this is what responsible social media usage looks like. And then being able to let them lean into it. If that's what you like, would you like this
Mhm.
club?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of fun things that we're doing. We have some grants, a 21st century grant that we have is an after school grant. Some of our students go there. They learn about coding. They learn about social
Mm.
media. They learn about responsibility as far as that's concerned. So that's some of the ways that we've been able to try to foster being forward thinking. I'll also make sure that we're making sure that we are teaching the standards of the state of New Jersey.
Absolutely. I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier when you were introducing One Bridgerton, your strategic plan that you
Mhm,
kind of rolled out. You mentioned trust and you mentioned stay, not only from your teachers and your staff, but also parents. So those two things that they stand out to me so much about intentional leadership and your
mhm.
leadership style specifically. Can you talk to me about, as you're leading this district, how are you leading with this mindset of trust and stay? How does that impact your day to day and impact your
Oh
leadership?
gosh. Oh, that was a good one. So in Bridgeton, our one Bridgeton was like I said, we really wanted to talk about how we are all moving as an entity. I always say I'm the person holding the umbrella. All of you guys are underneath it. So I like to say my leadership is an inverted triangle. Well, I am the one down there trying to hold up and support all of these opportunities, all of these folks. Um, the way I try to have trust in my leadership is to be very transparent in my communication. When we were rolling out the strategic plan, we have 5 goals. Um, kind of the 5 goals you could probably find in any plan. I would love to say they are groundbreaking. They aren't, but that's what we're doing. But the first one, we'll talk a lot about systems. And that's our first goal, but basically systems. Second goal is more academic. Third goal is SEL. Fourth goal is culture, climate ish, and then fifth goal is teacher retention or staff retention and recruitment. So in the first goal, talking about systems, I had to be very transparent with them and say, guys, you're going to see here that we're going to be working on the rollouts and making sure that you have this information ahead of time and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I have to be honest with you. We already messed up here. And you could see some of the teachers like, did she just say
Mm.
you messed up? And I'm like, yeah, I've already lost credibility here because I just rolled out a system September 2nd for you to implement September 3rd. These are the things that I'm going to be working on. And I think how that resonated is that allowed people to see that I am not afraid to say I've lost that credibility. And also give me an opportunity to get it restored. Because like I said it, trust, we all know trust is something takes a lifetime to build, a second to destroy. And we've kind of chipped away at some of that educational, that professional trust. And
Yeah.
for many years. And having a leader to acknowledge that, I think speaks volumes. How I try to get back trust, though, is to be communicative, to let them know I'm not hiding anything. The things that I can tell you, I will. I go to teachers and I tell them, hey, I've been hearing certain things. Talk to me about that. Tell me how I can help. Also, understanding that there is a system. Don't try to come to me to go around the principal, to everybody
Right.
else. Won't go straight to the superintendent. However, it makes me feel good to know that people do know, listen, we can go to Dr. Merriweather and she will look into it. I don't have a problem with that. My staff also knows, listen, if
Yeah.
whatever is going on, once it gets to my desk, I'm going to act on that. That's a trust that folks know that at least she is going to be accountable when she has that information. It also is big for parents. That's something that I'm continuing to work on, because some of our parents, they were very, very honest with us when we first started rolling it out. We had in one plan, they were like, listen, that's not going to work for us.
Mhm.
Having certain schools on one side of town, that's not helpful. We went back to the drawing board and presented them another plan. That is another opportunity for to me to show trust that, hey, listen, we're listening.
Yeah.
I'm listening. And not only am I listening, I'm willing to pivot our plan so that it meets and that it accommodates some of the parent needs. Can I please everyone? Of course not.
Right.
But I think what I also show is that if they trust, if I can build that trust in what we're doing, then it just cascades throughout our entire organization. They tend
Mhm.
to trust their their teachers more. They certainly trust their principals. But they can trust the decisions that are being made above them, and that it's happening with them, not to them. So
Yeah.
that's an opportunity that I see as building trust. And another big thing about building trust is being honest and true to who I am. You're not going to see a different Dr. Merriweather. And when I go to Wawa, then I go into your schools, then I'm at the board meeting, then I'm at this meeting. I'm the same Dr. Merriweather. I'm the same friendly face. I'm the same person that's going to give it to you straight. I'm the same person that's going to say, if we can do that, let's look into it. If we can't do it, I'm just going to tell you. I'm
Yeah.
the person that I'm respectful in what and how I say it. I understand where people are. I've been a teacher. I've risen up through the ranks. Part of I've missed on my story that I was a teacher for 6 years in Camden. So, and I taught first grade. So I've been there. I'm a mom. And when I was assistant superintendent, and that was some of my conversations of parents, and they sometimes they would say, "You don't even know Dr. Merriweather." I'm like, "Oh no, no, you're talking to a mama bear too.
Yeah.
You're talking to a mama bear, but this is what we can't do. I can't cuss out the administration and think I'm going to get the
Right.
results.
Yeah.
Can't use spicy language, but I'm okay with you being upset." But
Mhm.
but what I was able to garner, they then trusted me to handle it. And that's a nice thing to say. You got it? I got it.
Mhm.
Calling them back. Those are the things that I tell my leaders. If we want to have trust, you can't say you're going to get back to people and you don't. But are we infallible? No. But
Right.
that's something that we can use in order for when we do have missteps, and they inevitably will come. We make a withdrawal in the bank of goodwill, but we made a whole lot of deposits so we can cover the amount.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I also talk about stay, because teachers could be a tough bunch. No doubt about it. But again, if we've had those trustful relationships, then they would be more apt to stay with us, because they know, you know what? No one is perfect. The district pretty much does right by what we're trying to do as far as making sure these students are doing the very best we can. They are looking out for the adults as well, because while students are our North Star, I said 1A though is our staff.
Yep.
I can't get anything done without staff. And then also having parents. I don't want you to move away. We have enough phenomenal, and I don't want to tout it too much, but we have a phenomenal Cumberland County Technical school here. When I say you walk in there and your eyes are like, wow.
Yeah.
um, it just is what it is. It's an amazing edifice, and they're doing amazing things there. But what I want to do is have the Bridgeton High School be just as amazing. I
Mhm.
want our students to say, you know what? They have certain programs over there. That's why I'm going. Because if not, I'm staying at the Bridgeton High School. That's what the kind of thing we want. We want parents to move into our district. We have so many amazing things happen that I do want to be a district that when people are looking for
Yeah.
places to raise their children, they're going to want to be here. They're going to want to come here, and they're going to want to stay here. But that's only built with trust as far as the educational system is concerned. They have to
And
trust that we are looking out for their students in the very, very best way that we can. I'd like to think that a lot of our parents do feel that way, but I want to be sure that that's actually what's
yeah.
happening. And through my leadership, that's what I propose. I propose definitely us being present, being intentional in my communication, being visible as much as possible, and making sure that there's good things that about Bridgeton are being told.
Absolutely. Gosh, there's been, again, thank you so much for sitting down with me, because there's been so many things that have stood out. One is this conversation about self-governance, right?
Mhm.
And being exhibited in the high school. But self-governance is exactly what you just practiced when you were in your strategic plan, where
Yes.
you had to make some iterations and changes. And it's so important as leaders that we exhibit the behaviors that we're expecting in our communities. And
Oh,
that's what a servant leader and being a good leader
yeah.
is
Good.
really all about. And then this whole concept of freedom through accountability and how we instill that, not only as leaders, we do that amongst our students, but also we do that amongst all of the community that we support,
Correct.
and how we iterate and change on that. And then the multitude of programs and things that you've shared have really stood out. But I love the fact that we've ended on this conversation on intentional leadership and thinking about how you're leading, how you're instilling trust, how you're building systems, and all these core pieces that are part of one Bridgerton. When you
If I
think
may,
about,
Nate, one
yeah,
Bridgeton.
one Bridgeton. So excuse
Bridgeton.
me, sorry about that. Uh,
Bridgerton is that amazing place that Shonda Rhimes created.
that's right. When we know there's a number of folks that are in their first year as a superintendent, and there's those that are out there aspiring superintendents. What advice would you have for them as they're looking to kind of move into this leadership role?
One thing I would do is really try to shadow, as much as they could, a superintendent, and really get them to discuss some of the, not just the challenges, but some of the things that the reason why they're still a superintendent.
Mhm.
Because I didn't really know what the superintendency was until I sat in the chair. And you kind of, it's just like any job. You really don't know the ins and outs until you're actually doing it. But what I would say is being very astute at what their goals are. What is truly your goals? What are you really good at? Leaning into that. And if the superintendency is something that they really desire, trying to figure out, how do I make sure to fill some of those gaps? And if I can't fill that gap, then how
Yeah,
am I going to be able to hire in order to fill it? Um, it's a political position. I didn't really know that. I didn't really appreciate that. So
hmm,
that's something that someone, you need to, someone who is aspiring needs to understand. One thing I would definitely tell an aspiring superintendent or a first year superintendent, if they're not already, get into superintendent organizations, the
yeah,
AASA. There's the whole lot of different ones. There's state association, national associations, going to workshops and professional developments for superintendents is huge, because you can sit in your office and you literally feel like you're the only one until you go somewhere and it's like, you guys are having the same problem, and it feels like you found your,
yeah,
and you know how nice that is when it's like we're all speaking the same language. I'm not just making it up. Because this comes with so many responsibility. You are responsible for your students, staff, you're responsible for the community, you're responsible to the board, which is brand new. If you've never really dealt with that before, no matter what, that comes with its own set of challenges. You have so many decisions, like you're responsible for the weather.
yeah,
It's just a little bit of everything. And doing it can be something that you really don't anticipate, and being good at it, because what the statistics tell us is that a lot of people are not staying in the superintendency,
right.
and people are leaving like in 2.5 years, women even more so, and then women of color even more so. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's hard getting the job, and then it's harder staying in the job,
Yeah,
and having a mental fortitude to do so. So those would be some of the things that I would say for someone who is aspiring. Make sure, reach out to folks. Reach out
yeah,
to folks to really see, is this something that you're interested in, and not just the title? Because you can have the title of superintendent, but do you want the true responsibility of being a superintendent? Because in order to do it right, it's a lot more than what you think, but it is extremely, exceedingly, exceedingly rewarding work. And I'm blessed to be able to be the superintendent of Bridgeton Public Schools. I truly see it as an honor and a privilege to sit in this seat.
yeah. Oh, thank you so much. This great
Thank you.
conversation.
Oh,
I
so
was so
thank you
excited to
so much.
sit down with you and learn more about the district and everything that you're doing. Um, and hopefully we'll get to have you back on again. So
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure. Thank you so much.
thank you.